Welcome back to the For the Wise podcast for another explainer. Go ahead and pull up a chair, get comfortable, and hey, please like, comment, share, and subscribe as we settle in for a bit of a late night chat. Tonight, we're doing a deep dive into something I think we all need a little help with, and that is protecting our peace. We're going to talk about navigating those incredibly tricky relational waters where things just suddenly don't feel right. So let's just dive right into this. Have you ever had a friend, or maybe a coworker, instantly turn cold the exact moment you told them no? You know the exact feeling I'm talking about. One minute, you're having a totally normal, great conversation, they're using their absolute best, most polite customer service voice, and everything feels fine. But the very second they are denied what they want, bam, that warm voice just completely drops, the whole vibe shifts, and suddenly you can feel the metaphorical thread of your relationship pulling uncomfortably tight. It leaves you sitting there wondering, wait a minute, who exactly is this person? The crucial point here is understanding what just happened in that moment. What you're experiencing is a phenomenon called instrumental kindness. It's basically a pattern where someone is only empathetic or reasonable when they want something from you. They're using politeness as a social mask, but the moment that mask is no longer efficiently getting them what they want, they just drop it. Think of it kind of like an amygdala hijack. You know when your phone is at like 1% battery and it just starts aggressively force-quitting your background app so it can survive? That is exactly what's happening in their brain. When a really strong desire is triggered and then blocked, their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles logic and social restraint, just force quits. The highly emotional, impulsive amygdala takes the wheel, and all that polite social conditioning completely shuts down. Man, and when that force quit happens, we hit this really grim reality. They stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as an obstacle. It's incredibly tough to swallow, isn't it? I mean, look at Hawking the Owl over there in the corner. Our mascot is literally hiding his face and his oversized scarf just thinking about it. But it's the truth. They lose something psychologists call object constancy. That's the psychological ability to remember that you are a good person and a friend even when you are currently frustrating them by setting a boundary and saying no. When that mask drops, your feelings, your history together, your boundaries, none of it matters. You are literally just a roadblock standing in the way of what they want. Now, this kind of behavior exposes a deeply transactional worldview. In healthy relational thinking, people view human bonds as a continuous woven thread. Even if they are super annoyed with you in the moment, they still value the long-term health of the relationship above all else. But toxic transactional thinking? That is a totally different ballgame. To a transactional thinker, interactions are just isolated, singular events. If they want something from you right now, all your past favors, your years of friendship, and all your perfectly logical reasons for saying no just vanish into thin air. History simply doesn't matter. The only thing that exists in the entire universe at that exact second is them getting what they want. So if you're trying to figure out if someone in your life is wearing this mask of instrumental kindness, you've got to watch out for these rapid fire red flags during their unreasonable phase. First up is the tunnel vision effect. This is where they physically or verbally cannot acknowledge your logic. You could literally hand them a peer-reviewed essay on why you can't help them, and they'll just ignore it. Then comes sudden entitlement. All of a sudden, you owe them. Next is urgency creation. They manufacture a totally fake crisis to force a quick decision so you don't have time to think clearly. And if all that logic fails, bam, guilt tripping. They immediately pivot to emotional manipulation, saying things like, if you really cared about me, you'd do this. It is a highly calculated pivot away from reason. And all of this brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the pressure cooker test. True ethics, my friends, are not a fair weather accessory. You don't get to be ethical only when things are going your way. Character is defined by how someone handles the word no. Under pressure, a healthy person maintains their perspective. They might explain their urgency, sure, but they respect your boundaries and they actually acknowledge the burden they're placing on you. A dysfunctional person, they switch to splitting, meaning you instantly become the villain. They use coercion, they become completely empathy blind, and they operate on a purely the ends justify the means basis. Let's be real, a person's moral compass isn't really a compass if it only works when the weather is nice, right? Otherwise, it's just a shiny decoration. Which leads us to this rather blunt but honest reality. When someone shuts down all their empathy and ethics just to get their way, you are basically witnessing a regression to a toddler-like state of narcissistic demand. Think about a toddler throwing a tantrum in a toy aisle. Their world is tiny, their needs are absolute, and they completely lack the cognitive ability to understand your perspective as the parent. When an adult does this, it is a glaring, flashing neon sign of arrested emotional development. They literally have not learned how to sit with the discomfort of delayed gratification or to just accept that you have the basic human autonomy to say no.
All right, so what do we actually do when the connection starts to fray and you find yourself dealing with a 6-foot-tall toddler? You need a toolkit. Here is your boundary survival toolkit. The absolute biggest rule here: stop trying to reason with someone who has completely abandoned reason. Your goal is to become the most boring, immovable rock on the planet. Step 1 is the broken record technique. Step 2 is naming the dynamic, making a calm meta-comment about how they are acting right now. And step 3 is implementing the cooling off rule, where you physically or digitally just step away. Because remember, they've manufactured a false sense of urgency.
Let's look at the absolute best tool in that kit, the broken record. Here is your exact script. Memorize it, write it on your hand, do whatever you need to do. Just say, I understand this is important to you, but I'm not able to do that. When someone is in full force quit mode, they will try to lawyer you. If you give them 3 perfectly valid reasons why you can't do something, they will spend the next solid hour arguing those 3 specific reasons. By repeating this one firm, totally neutral statement over and over, you give them 0 logical hooks to grab onto. It completely starves their circular argument.
And that ties perfectly into this next brilliant concept, J.A.D.E. It comes from recovery circles, and it stands for do not justify, argue, defend, or explain. Listen, no is a complete sentence. Even Hakeem the Owl is ruffling his feathers at the very idea of over-explaining a boundary. When you J.A.D.E, you are basically acting as if your no is up for debate. And to a relentless transactional person, an explanation is just an invitation to negotiate. You're an adult. You do not owe anyone an itemized receipt for your personal boundaries. Just say no and hold the line.
But hey, we have to talk about the hangover from all this, the aftermath. What happens when the pressure finally subsides? Sometimes they just give up, and almost instantly they flip right back to being their reasonable, pleasant self. This is incredibly disorienting, and it's a tactic called gaslight by omission. If they act like absolutely nothing happened and offer 0 genuine apology for treating you like a literal obstacle, it proves something vital. It proves their outburst wasn't just a temporary nervous breakdown. It was a tactical shift. They are banking on your natural human desire for peace to just let them off the hook. Do not let the reasonable version of them distract you from what the unreasonable version just did. So, as we wrap up our chat tonight, I want to leave you with this internal checklist question to ponder over. The next time you feel the pressure mounting and someone's polite mask is slipping, ask yourself, is the cost of saying yes actually my own self-respect? If you have to constantly manage someone's personality just to keep them acting ethically towards you, they aren't actually an ethical person. Protect your peace, set those boundaries, and remember that true character is revealed when the answer is no. Thank you so much for joining this explainer from the For the Wise podcast. I really hope this deep dive brought you some clarity tonight. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more deep dives, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Stay wise, friends.